Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second half of our All Candidates Forum. My name is Leslie Chason, and I am the president of the Chamber of Commerce. I would just like to recognize that we are on this unceded and traditional territory of Sycus First Nation. For helping us put on this event, the Chamber would like to thank a few people: the BC Northern Real Estate Board for sponsoring this event, and Jody Peterson for volunteering, Diadem Promotional Imprinters for printing the posters, and VSS for allowing us to use this facility, the Chamber directors and managers as manager for volunteering many hours to organize this event. And we would especially like to thank Robin Work for graciously giving us his time tonight to moderate this event. For everyone's information, this is being broadcast live, so we ask that you do turn off your phones. Please check them and do that right now. We look forward to an informative evening, and I turn the time over now to Robin.
Thank you very much, Leslie. So as you can see, the stage is up a bit from the first half here. So we expect a lot of talking, fewer questions, but a lot of information is going to be shared, absolutely. So good evening and welcome to our Councillor Candidates Forum for the District of Vanderhoof. My name, as you may know, is Robin Work, and I'm honored to be your moderator this evening. I'd like to welcome all the folks who've come out tonight, as well as the ones viewing at home. Before I introduce our candidates, I'd like to give a quick rundown on the format. Each candidate will be given 3 minutes to make their opening statement, and we did a lottery ahead of time. And as you see them sitting, that is the order in which they are going to be giving their opening statements, starting at that end, working towards me. And after that, we're going to be going to a question and answer period. And all the questions have been submitted in advance by members of the community. And the order of the questions will be determined by me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw names randomly. So whoever's name I draw, then the order will continue from that person clockwise until it works out, till all 13 have had a chance to answer. It's complex. I know it took me a while to understand that. So due to time constraints, there will be no rebuttals. There was no rebuttals in the first section anyway. The question and answer portion should wrap up approximately 9:30. We are hoping to take a short break around 8:30 in the middle of questions for 7 minutes, exactly 7 minutes. So you better time your lineup for the bathroom. Now, I mentioned this earlier, and this bears repeating, that respect and civility are the expectation. And part of my role is to ensure that we all behave accordingly, and I will do so with neutrality and fairness. To end, we'll have each candidate in reverse order, starting at this end of the table, giving a 2-minute closing remark. So with that, let us begin the opening statements from the other end of the table with Jeff Craig.
All right, can everyone hear me? Is that good? All right. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this forum, and thank you all for coming tonight. I am honored to be here and looking forward to the questions submitted. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jeff Craig. My wife and I moved to Vanderhoof about 10 years ago from another small town. I worked on and completed my millwright apprenticeship at a local shop, while my wife started as a casual nurse at the hospital, working her way up to managing the operating room until recently. When we moved to town, we called over 20 places looking to rent before finally finding one. We went through the same thing 5 years later with finding a house to buy after the birth of my eldest son, Jacob. Available housing has gotten a lot worse since then. People are willing to work in or near town, but there's nowhere to call home. My second son, Lucas, was born a few years after that. He was born with a physical condition called arthrogryposis, which requires multiple corrective surgeries, splints, braces, as well as intensive physio and occupational therapies. Since then, we've experienced firsthand how hard it is to access the level of care he needs in the north, as well as the level of care for children with other special needs. A year and a half ago, we faced another challenge that almost every family goes through: sudden lack of childcare. After much discussion with my family, I made the decision to be a stay-at-home dad. This gave me a chance to be more hands-on with Luke's care, help my other son Jacob transition into kindergarten, and gave me the opportunity to get more involved in the community. A year and a half ago, the recent pandemic brought out both the best and worst of people. It was during the height of the vaccine scare that I decided to speak up. I started dissecting the lies and half-truths of various fringe groups online, and in a respectful way, tried to engage with people on a personal level to combat the misinformation. This was met with a ton of private praise, but a lot of public derision. During the harassment of local businesses, I felt that arguing with people online wasn't enough. Since then, I've made it my goal to get involved, especially with issues regarding inclusivity and acceptance. I'm currently volunteering with the Air Cadets, working on becoming a civilian instructor. I'm involved with the Good Neighbors Committee, which is an organization dedicated to addressing issues of racism, and fostering relations in the community that are welcoming, inclusive, and celebratory of others. I've also joined the Pride Event Planning Committee, which just recently saw a hugely successful celebration this past July. I'm running for council because I believe I can be a much needed voice for the community. I have a lot of years left in Vanderhoof, and my children's future is here as well. I'm looking forward to being a part of directing the growth of this town in a positive way, and I'm excited for the learning opportunity of becoming a local leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And our next opening statement will be Henry Thiessen.
All right, I'm a third-generation Canadian born and raised in British Columbia, where I still live with my wife, Linda. Together we have 5 children and 11 grandchildren. I have lived in Vanderhoof area for most of my adult life. I've worked in local mills, in the logging industry as a machine operator. Later on, I enrolled in flight school to get a pilot's license and worked as a helicopter pilot for almost 34 years. So what can I possibly tell you in 3 minutes or less that will make any difference? I could talk about the financial situation at the district office that was mentioned earlier in the mayoralty race, how they've had 6 financial officers in 6 years, how one of those CFOs sued the district and was awarded a significant amount of money in an out-of-court settlement, and so on. I could talk about the many letters and emails I've written to the mayor and council with no response. Zip, zero, zilch. I could talk about the housing shortage in Vanderhoof. But one of the questions that needs to be answered in a forum like this is, what is the role of government? And I would like to think that all of you would agree that the primary role of municipal government is to provide the following services for our community. So what is the role of municipal government? They need to bring us water, they need to take care of our sewer, they need to maintain our roads and sidewalks, etc. They need to provide garbage pickup. They need to provide public safety and security. They need to look after parks and recreation, development services such as building permits, bylaws, and so on. Those are the 7 main things that municipal government is responsible for. But municipal government has no place getting involved in social activism. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about the Rainbow Crosswalk. We are told that it makes Vanderhoof a more inclusive place, that we want people to feel safe in our community. That is simply virtue signaling. One of the proponents of the Rainbow Crosswalk was quoted in our local paper as saying, "Let's face it, this is more than paint." I couldn't agree more. This is part of a larger agenda that involves the United Nations and their comprehensive sexual education agenda and a host of other major players who also have an agenda. It's all connected. The Rainbow Crosswalk, the SOGI in our schools, the sexualization of our children. I'd be happy to talk to you and anyone about any or all of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Next opening statement is Cindy Lizzo.
Leadership is not racing to the front of the line, but lifting up those who are at the left and the right of you. This is achieved by creating an environment where there is opportunity for those who follow you to work towards their dreams and where the potential that rests in every one of us is realized. In a municipal context, this means that the inherent worth of every person in the community needs to be valued. The community must be a place where basic needs of safety, food, and shelter can be met. Relationships built and nurtured, and where there is ample space to create, to play, and to learn. In 2018, I was elected to my first term as a councillor for the district of Vanderhoof. At the time, 4 years seemed like a huge amount of time to learn about the role and responsibilities of municipal government, and ample time to tackle some of the pressing issues and my vision for the community. In 4 years, I have a much better understanding of procedures, policies, and protocols. And I have learned that creating change in government is more akin to moving a boulder uphill and requires a passion for the prize, tenacity, and a team pushing in the same direction. I would like to thank my colleagues who I sat with on council for their patience with me as I was learning, for sharing their knowledge and experience, and for their willingness to dedicate their time and talents to work together to move the boulders forward. 4 years ago, I said that council needed to work on addressing the shortage of housing in our community. In 4 years, we are not where we want to be, but we are moving towards the goal of providing a broad spectrum of available, accessible, quality housing in our community. We have a new seniors residence that is one of a kind in this province, and we have a much better understanding of the barriers that are inhibiting new housing development. I recognize the impacts to our forestry industry because of policies and the changes to our forests, and I know that Vanderhoof will need to look at ways to diversify its economy in order to remain viable. Healthcare and policing provide vital services in this community, and it is also important to continue the work of advocating for the support and infrastructure that is needed to keep the high level of care that we receive. The next council will need to continue working on the issues that I have highlighted, and I would like your support to be at the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cindy. Over to Brian Frankel.
Thanks, Robin. Good evening. My name is Brian Frankel. I've been a Vanderhoof resident for 39 years. During that time, I've witnessed the growth of our community, the challenges that we have faced, the successes that we've gained, had many difficult conversations with people, and endured a few bitter criticisms. But being a grandfather to 3 wonderful granddaughters has caused me to become reflective and try to look at our town from their eyes. But the new normal, or the new reality that we live in today, has pushed the boundaries of that perspective. We must find the opportunity in the crises that we face to come together to solve the most difficult problems, the most demanding problems, and achieve the best opportunities that we can. The list of expectations of council continues to grow. Today's council agenda would have been unrecognizable 10 years, 5 years ago. The list of issues that we have been given and accepted the challenge to engage and try to find local solutions are housing, healthcare, homelessness, the opioid crisis, mental health, suicides, attempted suicides, climate change, complex care, prolific offenders, public safety, diversity and inclusion, and truth and reconciliation. The list is long. It is my love of place that continues to motivate me and drive the efforts that we put in as elected officials. The past few years have been difficult. The public scrutiny, some public pushback, social media posts giving people 20 likes, which now makes them an expert on how to fix everything. It's relentless. But to those of us running for office, we will probably not fix everything. You may not even fix the item that you run on, but if and only if we collaborate, work as a team, trust one another, and create partnerships, we may get rewarded with a well-deserved victory for the residents of our community of Vanderhoof. I strive hard to build a healthy, sustainable, and prosperous community, the kind of community that we all call home. Public service is at best a vocation, not a job, not a hobby, it's a calling. And those that are elected have the good fortune to act responsibly and solve some of the challenges we face. I have that calling. I have the time commitment, the creativity, the positive attitude, and the ability to inspire and represent the residents of Vanderhoof. I truly considered my years on council as a blessing, and I would continue to be honored if you supported me for 4 more years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken and Brian. Next is Ernest Martins.
Thank you. I'd like to first of all thank Robin for hosting tonight. It's a very important job. Thank the Chamber for sponsoring this event. And probably the biggest thanks for seeing lots of people here tonight. That's really feels good too, that everybody's taken notes. A very important municipal election. Want to say congratulations to everybody sitting on the stage. Good luck in the election, you guys. We're all here to do our best for sure. I want to introduce myself and give you just a little bit of history of me, if you don't know who I am, just so you kind of know my background and why I think I can do a good job for council. My name is Ernest Martins, and I truly am from Vanderhoof. That may sound funny, but it starts even with my parents were raised here from 5 years old. I was born and raised in Vanderhoof. My wife down there, she was born and raised in Vanderhoof. I got two kids. They were both raised in Vanderhoof, and they're raising their children here now. So you can't be more from Vanderhoof than I am. The only reason I say that is it just simply means that if you don't think I want the best for this town, then you're wrong for sure, because I want the best for all of us for sure. I come from a long line actually of entrepreneurial people, and starting with my father, who was part of the original Martins family, who along with my grandfather and his brothers started what we now know as Plateau Mills. So that was pretty important in the early days of Vanderhoof, and I spent my teenage years working in the sawmills after school and then full-time after we finished high school. I did work for my father a few years after that in the trucking industry, and for a few other employers in town as well, until I think I was 19 years old when I went out on my own, started my own working for myself. My kids, we're very proud of our kids. Our kids must have inherited part of that entrepreneurial gene as well. They're both living and raising their families in Vanderhoof, and both of our kids are big in the local business community for Vanderhoof, so we're glad for that. In the last 27 years, my wife and I have operated the local driving school, and you may even been two of our clients. I have no idea. Could well have. We've worked with a lot of you, and whether it be for training for your children to learn how to drive their car, maybe some of you doing a motorcycle course with me and Mike, or all the commercial driving, and there's lots of people in this town that have come through us over the years and are now driving and working and earning a living in our town. We've worked a lot with First Nations over the years, as well as government and corporate businesses through the north, all the way from Fort St. John to Kitimat, and have established good relationships with everyone. We continue to work here and no plan on stopping. So we made a lot of great friends in Vanderhoof over the years, and we're very proud where we come from. We love our community. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ernest. Now we have Ken Young, right on time.
Right on time. Excellent. Thanks, Robin. It's good to see everyone out tonight. I want to thank the Chamber also for hosting here. What did you say my name was? Oh, yeah. I am Ken Young. I'm honored to be a candidate for councillor for the District of Vanderhoof. I was raised by my parents, John and Vi, on a 160-acre farm in Sturgeon Point Road. There, like many farmers' kids, I learned... am I supposed to drink water now? No? Okay. Many life lessons, like picking sticks. Raise your hand if you pick sticks. Okay, you can put it down now. I feel bad. Helping neighbors and being active in our community. I met my wife, Monica, way back in grade 8 here at NVSS. We didn't get married in high school. We waited until we graduated from college, but we did come back to Vanderhoof to raise our children. I have been a school district 91 educator for 26 years, and currently I am the proud principal in the Chaco Valley Secondary School, so please clean up after yourselves tonight. Serving this past term has given me an in-depth knowledge of present scenarios facing our community. We've experienced some real positives and growth in Vanderhoof in the last decade, and I believe there are quite a few more to come. I know the past 2 years have been difficult for many folks. Many of you are here tonight, and we are truly at a crossroads as a community. We must choose our path wisely. Safety and security matters, and this has already come up tonight. This starts with adequate housing for all. Without it, our physical and mental health is truly affected. To say that this has been a challenge yet to be conquered here in Vanderhoof, indeed our entire province, is the cold hard truth. We must focus on low barrier housing and increasing housing starts and finding opportunities to increase our rental stock. The provincially recognized and innovative 28-unit Parkside Place is a major win for our community. That's 28 spots that we didn't have before. Ongoing collaboration with local contractors, agencies, citizen groups, and the provincial government must continue to ensure the facilitation of new and innovative solutions, including, most importantly, addressing our aging infrastructure, which is stymieing further growth for housing. A development corporation to kickstart initiatives or work alongside those looking to build and invest is also needed. This is an example of out-of-the-box thinking. We need those houses, as stated earlier tonight, to fill that employee vacuum. Our local level of healthcare has been second to none in the north, and our hospital has become a medical hub for our neighboring communities as well. Ensuring a stable level of care will draw and retain more healthcare professionals, giving them needed supports and lessen the work hours, which are often beyond their capacity. Healthcare is a major attraction and retention component for many potential employees. Recently, we were able to remind the Premier of his commitment to improving the healthcare and the building infrastructure in Vanderhoof. Collaborating with our forestry and agriculture industries whenever possible is always going to ensure continued economic stability and local food certainty here in Vanderhoof. Finding opportunities to diversify in order to withstand any downturns, supply issues, etc. is our utmost.
Thank you, Ken. The darn score bell.
Should have learned from Kevin.
Now we have Eric Lytle.
Hello, I'd like to thank everybody for coming and the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this. My name is Eric Lytle. I'm excited and nervous to present myself as a candidate for council. A little background on me, I moved to Vanderhoof in 2000 with my family. My wife and I raised our 3 sons here. My youngest son still lives and works in Vanderhoof. Since moving to Vanderhoof, almost right away, I started volunteering in the sporting community. I've coached a variety of sports, soccer, baseball, rugby, football, and basketball in both youth leagues and in the public high school here. I've spent quite a bit of time on the executives for both youth basketball and football, and currently am the president of the Vanderhoof Softball Association. I personally get a lot of enjoyment and personal satisfaction of spending time with the sporting community members and working together to increase recreational opportunities for youth and adults in the community. I've been interested in running for council for quite a while, but I just didn't feel like I was personally ready, I think mature enough, to tell you the truth, to run. But I felt the time was right this time. So why I'm running is I want to be of greater service to this community. I believe I have the energy, the time, and the ability to represent the people of this community in a positive manner. I think the challenge is fascinating. I think, I'm not an incumbent, so I don't know the ins and outs of all the challenges that they've faced. But the little bit I do know, I think that it would be fascinating to get in some of the committees and work groups to tackle those things. I believe I'm a good listener. I think I'm approachable. Most people have no problem talking to me. I think I'm a good listener. I'm a good listener, Kelly. And so the interests that I have, for me, looking at the community, I think it was an official community plan. I did some reading before this. I'm only at 1 minute. I'm going to be finished up. I found, as everybody's talked about, the housing is important. I mean, Kelly and I, we had our son Torrin living with us for 4 years because, not that he didn't have a job, but he couldn't get a mortgage that would allow him to buy a house. It isn't affordable. It wasn't like that when I moved here. We had a choice of houses. I'd like to see that change. I'm interested in flood mitigation for the area. I personally live in a floodplain. I saw that on the map. Food security. And then I'll leave the rest there. I'd also like to say that I like the rainbow crosswalk. I was happy to take a picture of that and send it to my son to show him that this community was evolving. I sent him videos of the parade that people organized. And you don't have to vote for me, but I hope you vote for people that'll move this community forward in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. And so now we have Brad Deja.
Good evening. As already stated, my name is Brad Deja. I've been married to my beautiful wife for just about 28 years. We have 3 children and 2 grandchildren. I know I'm far too young and good looking to be a grandpa, but here I am rocking it. I was born and raised in southern Alberta, spent 27 years there, went to trade school, became a journeyman carpenter. We started our own construction business. 20 years ago this month, we moved to Vanderhoof area. It's been truly one of the best decisions we ever made. I look back at those days and I remember the sense of community that so impressed us at the time. I miss those days. I wonder where that went. I believe we have some challenging times ahead, economically and socially. Now, I'm a firm believer in this, as has been stated. Government, yes, even soft power government like council and mayor in a small town, was and is intended to manage things such as finances, development, growth, economy, infrastructure, and the like. Social justice issues and minority group demands should never become the focus or obligation of any government, and for sure should not become a burden to the taxpayer. There is, it seems to me, a huge disconnect between government and the people. There's an air of aloofness that inhibits meaningful dialogue. It's been alluded to as well. I want to find some answers to and some solutions for things like the echo in here, the at least 20-year-old question of why the housing crisis. We hear it, we hear it, we hear it, we hear it, we hear it. It's time to do something about it. I don't know what the answer, I don't know what the problems are, I don't know what the answers are, I intend to find out. It's time to move on. Other towns move on. Drive around Prince George right now and you look at the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes being built. Surely we can attract at least a few of those. Are we really being responsible with our finances? Heavily in debt to an aquatic center, now plans for multi-million-dollar public works building. When do we rein in a little? Is it all grant money? I don't know. It seems like governments of all sectors have a seemingly insatiable hunger for money and not enough accountability in how it's handled. Now let me clarify. I am not saying all is lost, nor am I saying that current council is all bad. I am saying that I believe there is necessity for new blood, a new approach, and a changing of the guard, so to speak. The very fact that there are so many candidates this year, way more than normal, or maybe ever before, would attest to the fact that I believe many feel the same.
Thank you, Brad. Now we're putting the mic over to Bill Tykrode.
I'm absolutely impressed with the amount of people showing up. This is fantastic. I have community involvement in everything we're doing. It's about time. Thanks for everybody for being here. I'm Bill Tykrode, born and raised. The family's been here since the 40s. I've successfully run my plumbing and heating company for 26 years. Love the industry, and it's been a real honor for me to serve the community in that way. And I'm truly, really excited to use my business acumen to further the community in financial ways, housing they all talk about. One thing I think that is grossly underestimated, I was talking to a young nurse today. What about childcare? How come there's no childcare? We need to address these issues. If we want to maintain and the health center that we have and the business professionals, we need to look at the whole grand picture of everything. Housing through everything is obviously a huge issue this time around. I look forward to serving everybody here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bill. Now we'll bring the mic over to Kurt McKee.
Hello, I'm Kurt McKee, a long-term resident of Vanderhoof. I was born and raised here. My family moved here back in 1967. The one thing that I really miss, or I seen in Vanderhoof when I grew up, was a very unified community. Everybody kind of knew everybody. You'd walk down the street and know everybody. And I'm concerned. One of my concerns is to make sure we keep a community that has our small town atmosphere, yet develop and grow and help people to become unified one with another in the growth that we do have. Be responsible for the growth and the developments that we have. One of the things that I've done and been lucky doing Vanderhoof was I own the landscaping company here. When I first started, nobody cared very few people cared what the yards looked like. And that was a big challenge for me, was to try to get people to make the community look good. And since then we have beautified our streets coming into Vanderhoof. We put trees in, we put sidewalks in. I'm not taking responsibility or maybe credit for any of it, but I was involved with some of that to have some of that happen. And I think it's important to have a community that's that's beautiful and that keeps people coming here. I like my community. I was born and raised on a farm. I've been involved in logging industry, and I'm really nervous. Oh, my voice is even starting to shake now. This is my first time running as council. I just felt like that I needed to do something to stand up for the community, stand up for each one of you as an individual person. No matter who you are, what you are, I would like to hear your points of view, your ideas, and the thoughts and things that you would like to see develop and happen in the community. I know there's a huge shortage and a huge trouble with housing in Vanderhoof. We have some rental houses in Vanderhoof, and we have a non-stop list of people trying to get in and searching for opportunities. And seniors, I have a lot of friends that are aging. A lot of my friends are aged and not here any longer, but we need to develop things for our aging community. We have a great community for retirement, but we need to make it better for retirement and more accessible for people that want to come here and retire and be here and enjoy our great community. And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Now we're over to Tom Balmer.
Unlike a lot of the people at this table here, I was not born and raised in Vanderhoof. My lovely wife Carolyn and I moved to this town many years ago when I agreed to fill in for a couple of weeks at the broadcasting job I had. It's been a little longer than a couple of weeks now. We fell in love with this town. We've raised our family here, and they are now raising their family here. I've been involved in my town ever since then. I've worked on everything from the Summer School of the Arts to the Vanderhoof Flyers Hockey Club, if anybody can remember that far back. There's some very old memories there. More recently, I was also involved in the Emergency Operations Office during the flooding in 2007. I became part of the amazing team that raised the money to bring the aquatic center to our town, and we needed that badly. The original Vanderhoof Air Show was part of that from the 80s and 90s to its resurrection. I co-chaired the 2018 version of the show, and I worked on this past summer's show, which was one of the best we've ever done. I've also just completed 4 years as president of the Nechako Valley Historical Society, which the Nechako Valley Historical Society and the DOV raised that from the ashes. And if you want, I can go into that story one day. I'm also a member of the Integris Community Foundation, responsible for this theater you're sitting in right now, and they do a lot of stuff around town. I also had the honor of meeting many of our federal politicians when I was the federal government liaison chair with the BC Northern Real Estate Board. So I think my history in the town shows that I'm always working to try and move this community forward, and I would now like that opportunity to serve you doing that on council. And I did use that word serve because in my view, the role of council is to listen to the people, find out what they want, try and interpret people's needs, and then look at possibly policies and things that can help and craft policies to make our town that would be safe, productive, fun places to live and work and play. So you've heard all across this table, you've heard it earlier too, and you'll hear it in almost every city, town, and village across this country. Housing is one of the most important issues, so I'm not going to go into that now because we just heard a whole bunch of it. But going hand in hand with that, we have to look at our aging infrastructure. That is also going along right across North America. Aging infrastructure is really a problem for all of us, so we've got to look at that. The next few councils are going to be taxed with that. The DOV must take part, but they must also lead in that, and I think some of the policies they have on the go now are helping out. And I want to get involved in that as well. There's no single solution to any of these situations, but the council of the day has to be dedicated to working at things like updating the OCP, the zoning, the bylaws, the infrastructure, all of that.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
David Bandola.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Robin, for moderating tonight and the Chamber for hosting this event. This is unprecedented. My family moved to Vanderhoof in 1968 from Southern Oregon. kind of a similar situation that's going on in our community right now. At that time in 1968, there was a huge teacher shortage. And so the superintendent of schools at the time went down to Southern Oregon to rural school districts and recruited teachers to come to Vanderhoof. In 1968, there was 27 teachers on staff here. 14 of the 27 were from the United States. 11 of those 14 were from Oregon. So there's back in those days, and I know all the old timers, they used to call Vanderhoof Little Oregon, and it still has a high American population in the area. I went to high school right here at NBSS. I was actually a member of the first provincial championship basketball team, coached by my dad. Right here in this actual building right here, this was our gym. And the stage it hasn't changed in 50 years. But so, you know, I look at my experience at that time, and the people in the community used to support us at the high school, at the team level, and they still do today. You know, you go to see the football games or any of the runs that are going on, the biathlon. We have unbelievable and unprecedented support by community members, and it's outstanding. And it's why I live here. My wife and I raised our children here. My two daughters I was blessed with 5 grandchildren, 3 of which are still in town, and I helped them get to school in the mornings after I retired. So I'm available for a little extra duty, and if I'm so lucky to be elected here. Prior to retirement, I was the district manager for the Forest Service here. I was a senior leader. I worked directly with assistant deputy ministers and with the deputy ministers and the minister. There's going to be a critical time coming forward with us. Later this month, the allowable annual cut in the Prince George Timber Supply Area will decline another 1 million cubic meters. That will force the mills to rationalize their volume, and we have to be ready for it as a community. So, you know, that everybody else has talked about housing. You know, I talked to my sister. She's a lab tech up the hospital. They have 3 vacancies. They can't get anybody in. No housing, and then there's just no staff that are willing, that are even available done cross-Canada recruitments. We need to get involved with those sectors and try to do as best we can to bring people into the community, because if we don't and services leave, the community will really suffer for it. So thank you, and I hope I get your support on October 15th.
Thank you very much, David. And last but not least, Spencer Seaman.
Well, before I get started, I might be the only candidate on this table that doesn't have gray hair yet. It's coming. So I just had to take that shot. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Spencer Seamans, and I'm seeking re-election for council for the District of Vanderhoof. These last 4 years for me have been life-changing. From becoming a father, to losing a father, to buying my first house, and all the things in between. This community has so much potential, and I believe I have the ability to take it to the next level. I'd like to thank Mary Jerry Thiessen and John Murphy, Councillor, for their years of service. If I've learned anything in the last 4 years, it's the dedication you have to council to do what you think is best for the community and work as a group. It's astonishing. I think me and Cindy, being the newcomers on the previous council, really found out in a short amount of time how much work there really is involved and all the issues that you have to take on. And I'd like to thank all the other councillors for their support and guiding us through the last 4 years. I think we all know the housing crisis is a problem, and to fix it, I don't have the answers. It's aging infrastructure. We need to keep continuing to look at that, see what type of grants are out there from the provincial government that can take us into an ability to build this stuff. And one other thing that always comes to mind for me is mental health. We live in the north. We all know it. It's a dark place in the winter. You know, for those of you who don't know, and it's not a story that I'm going to go into depth with, but my father passed away, and then the next day my baby girl was born. So in a 24-hour period, I lost my father and lost my baby girl, or not lost my baby girl, but gained a baby girl. Sorry. That was the hardest 24 hours of my life, and you know, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go for you when you're hurting. And I would like to see some sort of mental health facility in Vanderhoof that we can get support from. It's critical. I think it'll also attract many professionals. And yeah, it's one of the things that's very important to me and that I'll continue to work with. One other thing I wanted to say before I end my speech here is if I get reelected, I would like to start a youth council that I lead. I feel that my young voice is important to the community and that I can continue to seek ideas and visions from them. So again, on October 15th, I hope to see you guys all out and vote vote for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Spencer, and thank you everyone for your opening statements. So we will now move on to the question and answer portion. And as I promised, I'm going to be randomly drawing a name here. Very random. And so the first question is going to lead off with Ernest Martins. And so what's going to happen then is pass the microphone. Yeah. And so it's going to be going clockwise after that. So Ernest, first question. One measurement of a community's health and economic stability is in its social and cultural diversity. If elected, what steps will you take to welcome, support, and promote the success and inclusion of people from the 2SL LGBTQ plus community, Indigenous groups, immigrants of color, and those with disabilities?
Thanks, Robin. I totally believe we must all, if we're not already, with something we need to work on all the time, is really learning to be more inclusive. There's a lot of different lifestyles and different cultures in our community, and we certainly need them here, and they're all welcome. You know, that it really is special that we have that in our community. Whenever there's a discussion about anything, there's always two sides to it, and I'm a firm believer in that we need to listen to everyone's opinion. And if it's different than ours, that doesn't mean that they're wrong and we're right necessarily. It's important that we hear both sides and make a decision based on that, for sure. So I'm totally behind that kind of stuff. And I want people to be themselves. Like it seems to me sometime, this last few years anyway, it seemed like people are almost afraid to express their opinion on things, and that's kind of wrong too. We all have one, and let's work together and move it forward. Absolutely, for sure. I don't want people to be phony. Let's be straight up and work together.
Okay. Thank you, Ernest. And so actually, we're going to go clockwise. Yeah.
Clockwise.
That's the other
clockwise for me. So if the audience, because the audience is the people who matter, their clock goes this way. So I apologize. There's a whole stage left, stage right thing. I never really figured that out. Basically, we're going to go that way. Okay. So in interest
Which
of
way
time,
are we going to go, Robin? We're going to go this way.
we're going to go that way. Yeah, we're headed to the right. Sorry, that was bad. In the interest of time, if
Yeah, just
anybody
leave the
needs a
last one.
question repeated, you can absolutely ask me to repeat it. Otherwise, we can just, in the interest of time, pass the mic along.
Okay, that's good. I don't need it. Thanks. Steps for inclusion and diversity in our community. Over the last 4 to 8 years, we've seen major strides in our community become more open, more diverse. From the LGBTQ groups in our community and people in our community, we are trying to make them feel safe and included. And I think council took a big step in that with Pride and the crosswalk this past couple of years. People aren't safe yet, and I mean that in a big way. We'll work on that some more. We have to keep working on that. I think our inclusion of Indigenous nations has been nurtured over the last 10 years, great relationships. Again, we'll continue with that. I also believe that migration and immigration has happened. We've seen it in our service industry. moving out into all aspects of our community. So we have to be welcoming, because that will be some of the solutions that we see going forward for a whole pile of things, from filling those 250 jobs that we heard about. So I think council's done a great job so far. We can do better, and we will do better as we go forward.
Thank you, Brian. Cindy?
Okay, so I'm going to draw on my classroom experience, because I always believed that my classroom needed to be a safe space for people to share, ask questions, to share what they were feeling on their heart. And I think that's the first step. We have to ensure that whatever space we create in this community, people feel safe to speak. We need to withhold judgment. We all come from different places. We have different values. We have different beliefs, and that's okay. That's what makes us a beautiful group. But we have to withhold judgment. We have to really listen. And I think, truthfully, we need to seek out those groups. If we want people to come to the table to share, not sit back and wait for them to come to us. We need to seek them out. And I think that would be an important step in ensuring all people feel valued and included.
Thank you, Henry.
Okay, I'd like to just say that as a Christian, it's my duty to love everyone, including my enemies. The Bible says, bless those who curse you and love your enemies. And that's what we need to do. We need to love people for who they are. We need to respect them regardless of their positions. And that's basically it. And when it comes to the Indigenous issue, we need to be good neighbors. And, you know, again, if you go to the scriptures, who is your neighbor? It's anyone who's in need. And regardless of their financial status, regardless of their racial status, we take care of people. So that's the bottom line when it comes to the differences between people. And so we need to listen, we need to respect people, and to love them. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
Could you just repeat the question one more time,
Absolutely,
please?
Jeff, sure. So one measurement of a community's health and economic stability is in its social and cultural diversity. If elected, what steps will you take to welcome, support, and promote the success and inclusion of people from 2S LGBTQ+ community, Indigenous groups, immigrants of color, and those with disabilities?
Thank you. I believe the first thing is to continue and support the local clubs or groups that celebrate diversity. I believe we should also advocate for various education and training programs that focus on bridging that gap and getting rid of those thoughts of racism and bigotry as they come up, combating that at the source. I'd like to see us continue having more of an official community presence at these various events celebrating diversity and encourage more. I also believe one thing that should be done is to hold people more accountable for acts of racism and bigotry, including online. Because I've seen it's been around since the birth of the internet. People are hiding behind a screen. They don't see a name attached. They just see someone to argue with. I believe people should start being held accountable to some of the more hateful actions that happen around town. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think, look at that, Brian. Thank you so much. Spencer.
So to be inclusive in your community, you got to listen to everybody. And at the end of the day, doesn't matter your sexual orientation, your race, your religion, anything like that. At the end of the day, we're all human. We should love each other, listen to each other. We might not all agree on the same things, but at the end of the day, we're a community and we have to come together and find solutions together. We need to work with those groups of minorities, you know. When it comes to Indigenous relations, in the last 4 years, I think we've taken huge steps. We have a license agreement with SICAs. We have a community fork. We have a community forest that was negotiated before I was on council, but again, another example of that. And I think we just need to continue and love everybody. I know the last 2 years have really put our community kind of in a split. But now the time is for healing. Let's come together, work as a community, love each other, and go forward.
Thank you, Spencer. And David.
Yeah, the inclusiveness and the diversity is a huge piece, and how boring and would it be for us as a society if we would not be accepting of others, people's points of view, their races, their cultures, their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, or their cultures and stuff. So, you know, we need to work together. You know, really,
David.
you know, for me, as long as, you know, individuals are law-abiding, productive citizens, you know, I'm good to have all those individuals come and participate in our community. And I'm more than welcoming to have them, and thank God they're here, because if we didn't, there'd be a huge shortage of a numerous number of jobs that we have out there that aren't being filled by our local population. So thank God they're here. And I welcome them with open arms. From a First Nation standpoint, it's only been recently that our provincial government signed the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. And in there's some pieces in there where it talks about our reconciliation efforts that we are going to make. As a local council, reconciliations about listening and learning and understanding the suffering that those communities have gone through, and opening up them with open arms. So I would be hopeful that that, you know, everyone here would be under the same feelings that I am, and I just welcome those people with all my heart.
Thank you, David. So is that microphone still functioning?
I believe it is.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Not sure.
Thank you.
So, I agree with everyone up here. We have to be more inclusive. I also, I agree with Eric that the beautiful crosswalk is dynamite for a town. We need that. We need recognition that we are actually moving ahead with the world, the way the entire world goes. We've learned a lot about the way the world operates because of the way the internet has invaded our homes. Whether we like it or not, it's here to stay. And our knowledge of what's going on around us, whether it's in different communities, whether it's in different societies, we need to know about that, and we need to move ahead with it. So I do want to make a comment about that. I want to say about that crosswalk, leave your rubber on your daddy's tires and the colorful rainbow crosswalk as it is. I watched a movie the other night called For Love. It was done by Mary T.G. About the reconciliation program. And it was amazing. I've heard some people say, oh, it makes us all feel like oppressors. I did not feel like an oppressor when I watched that movie. I feel I learned history that was hidden from me when I was younger. History that I believe we should all be aware of. And I think our entire community should work together to welcome everybody, our neighbors, and those who are thinking of becoming our citizens and our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
I feel it's a very complicated issues, and then there's a lot of information, a lot of things to go. But one thing I feel is very important is that all people are equal, and all people need to be heard. People need to be understood, and that doesn't put any one person above anybody else. And our community has developed and grown a lot in supporting and caring for each other, no matter who, what, or where you are. And I think that needs to continue no matter where you are. And it doesn't matter who you are, you need to care for one another. We each need to care for another and carry on with those responsibilities. I have many friends that are many varieties of things that express a lot of feelings and concerns and understand, and they need to be heard, and then those issues need to be addressed, and they're not going to be resolved in one day or one answer or one meeting. It is going to have to be a continual development and support and care for each one of those questions, those concerns that each one has, and brought to as we as a council and as a community need to hear them and address them and approach them in a way that will help and benefit all people, no matter who you are or what you stand for.
Thank you, Kurt. So next with the response is Bill Tycroft.
I'm actually really excited about the diversity. I think it's fantastic. Having grown up in the town, seeing more people being more inclusive is excellent. I believe all people should have the equal rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and we need to afford that to people. As far as the Indigenous goes, I watched actually a video on YouTube, what the Hopi Indians put out. They predicted World War I because they were not included. They predicted World War II, they were not included. And they're saying World War III is coming if we do not include all peoples of all nations. I hear lots of people talking about listening. We need to include, not just listen.
Thank you, Bill. Over to you, Brad.
So I'll reiterate the fact that I believe government at this level is to take care of practical issues like infrastructure, clean water, etc. Keeping the narrative alive promotes a victim mentality. It's your responsibility out there in the crowd. It's your responsibility to treat your neighbor in a decent manner. It's my responsibility as a father, a council member or not, a business person, to treat people with respect no matter who they are. It's not reasonable to ask government to legislate behavior. That doesn't work. It's a slippery slope. Catering to specific minorities is a slippery slope. Because what happens when Black Lives Matter comes to town and wants us to fund their movement? Do we fund it? What happens when the Proud Boys come to town? Do we fund them? The Satanic Club? How about the church? So it's a slippery slope that I don't think this is the place to deal with it. Teach your children, exercise it yourself in your own heart, in your own life. Make your neighbor feel, include them, love on them. We can't legislate how you treat your neighbor. If we focus on those issues too much, we're going to not deal with the housing crisis. We're not going to deal with infrastructure and growth and what government was intended to be.
Thank you, Brad. So, Eric, could you repeat the question? Absolutely, yes. So one measurement of a community's health and economic stability is in its social and cultural diversity. If elected, what steps will you take to welcome, support, and promote the success and inclusion of people from the 2S LGBTQ+ community, Indigenous groups, immigrants of color, and those with disabilities?
Okay, I think as a council that would be a big task, but individually, I've been fortunate enough to have a gay member of my family live with us, so I'm, I understand the risks and threats to exposing yourself in this community that he had, and I don't know what you would do. I think the steps that this council, the previous councils took with the crosswalk and the Pride Parade were good steps. I don't know how we make it safe for everybody here. I would like to work with people to improve that for everybody. I know there's other gay people that have moved back to this community that are thriving. So I would speak to them. What made you come back? How do you feel here? What could make it better? As far as relations with the First Nations, I mean, I spend quite a bit of time with First Nations through softball. That's there's a large group of First Nations people that travel to this community to play. We get a team from Cucci that comes twice a year to play. I guess, I never really thought about how to bring more economic diversity out of them into that, except for a little bit of tourism. I'm a little discouraged by some of the answers. I'd like to think that we were already moving that way, but if elected, I guess I'll dive right into this one. I feel it's important.
And our final response is Ken Young.
I'll be faster this time. I think this is a very important question, and it goes back to the perception of our community. And I think we all have various levels of the perception of how people are treated in our community. And I think back to the beginning of this meeting tonight, and I heard people's stories about how they arrived here in our community. And I think it's really interesting to hear people's origin stories in terms of how they came to our community. And yet oftentimes when we hear from other people, some of the groups that you just mentioned, and the challenges that they face, we're not always listening. And I think the biggest piece too is you have to remember many of the groups that were listed are used to having things done to them. So when we talk about what are we going to do for them, we kind of have to understand what they perceive that those things should be. So I think right now it's really hard for us to assume that we have those answers because they're going to come from a different perspective. And I hate saying they, but I'm talking about the group of all the people that you mentioned. And so I think it's really important for us to sit down and listen and hear and be present and find ways that we can really understand what people are going through as they're facing those challenges in our community. When we talk about our First Nation issues with our great friends, our neighbors in Sycas, Marie St. Clair, a former senator, said, education got us into this mess and education will get us out. So I think the more educated that we are in understanding all these issues will help us one step at a time solve them or get closer anyway.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, so we're going to move on to our second question here. I'm going to pick another name, and it's Cindy will start this one off. A little bit shorter. What are your plans for economically diversifying our community moving forward, given the state of our forestry industry?
Okay, well, one of the things that I would like to see this community take advantage of for economic diversity is looking at our agriculture sector and understanding how we can take advantage of value-added industry with our agriculture. Vanderhoof, our area, used to boast, I understand, a dairy, maybe not right in Vanderhoof, but we had a dairy processing. Abattoirs, we need more of those kinds of things. And then create policies that will allow farmers to come forward and create some of the industries that will make them more viable. So that's one area I would like to look more into.
Okay, there's a lot of opportunity for industry development in this valley. Cindy mentioned the agriculture sector. We have a large set up an infrastructure or a cooperative or something to help local producers to get their product to market. There's a lot of opportunity in the robotics and technical industries. I know some people are already involved in this, but there's a huge opportunity there to attract investment in the technical industry. Definitely need to look at alternative ways because, as has been mentioned, the industry is declining in our valley for a number of reasons. And so those are two possibilities. There's also huge possibilities, I think, in recycling because, there was a time when there was a fellow that was running what was then called the dump. He had enough stuff there to build a house that he had all separated out of there. But the problem is, if you or I went there as a recycler and took any of the wood or that, and that would happen now, if we used any of that material and made a profit from it, we'd get taxed on it. So those kind of things need to have tax breaks so that they can, that these ideas can move forward and develop those kind of ideas.
Plans for economic diversity moving forward. I believe in the official community plan, there's plans ahead to create an industrial zone. It's just a problem of where it's going to be located because no matter which direction you go in town, you're going to run into problems. North side, they don't want the traffic running through Burrard or North Side Road. West, you just don't have the infrastructure to build out there yet. As for the east side of Vanderhoof, you're kind of running into more of the agricultural land reserve, and there is a need to go over the various zonings and bylaws and stuff to encourage that kind of building as well as celebrating everyone else's diversity, encouraging locals to start up shops. There's a huge farmers market community in town that's built on that, right? Why end it with just there? Getting more of local produce back into our stores. I'm going to see the rest of my time.
Spencer.
All right, economic diversity. So I've been in the forestry industry for just over 4 years now. I work at Nechako Lumber, and I've seen us go crazy, and I've seen us go down to 3-day weeks in a matter of 4 years. Now back to 4s. To diversify, I think we need to really focus on agriculture, like some of previous mentioned. I think there's very untapped potential in that industry. And we just need to take some of the red tape that we can produce more in our valley and give back more to our valley. The other part that's important is mining. We are, seeing that the mine south of us on Blackwater is going to be opening up soon. They're looking for contractors, and tourism as well. There is so much tourism here for outdoor tourism. We need to promote that. And again, it comes back to red tape as well, though. Liability is a huge issue in the tourism industry. It deters a lot of people from coming into it. It's the same with agriculture, and we just need to work with the provincial and federal authorities to take that red tape away. And last but not least, I just want to say this. Canfor and Sinclair have both invested money in their mills. So yes, there is some doom and gloom in the forestry industry, but seeing them invest still in our community shows that they're here to stay and that they're willing to work with us. And, McDonald's wouldn't have come here if they didn't think this community had potential for growth. It really wouldn't have. It's a business decision for them. So we have so many opportunities to look ahead to, and I hope that you give me the opportunity to work with these groups and find a way forward.
Spencer, David?
Yeah, so there's a big area that we could really put our energies into is, again, like a couple of the other candidates talked about, was the agriculture industry. In 2015, the beef cattle industry at the auction mart had $39 million in cattle sales. The challenge that they're having is they are not able to get shavings for the winter then to have their cows bed down in. We have a community forest. We have agreements with Nechako Lumber. Nechako Lumber produces shavings. Canfor produces shavings. We need to get more involved in the ability to make sure that those two entities are able to provide shavings so that the beef cattle industry can continue to grow and thrive. The other thing I'd like to focus on is using my relationships that I had while I was in the Ministry of Forests with the senior levels and executive, is I want them to consider, I want to be an advocate for moving the Prince George air tanker base here to Vanderhoof and utilize the fantastic airport that we already have. That alone would probably produce between 80 and 100 jobs right there at the airport. And moving it 60 miles, their time to get to a target will make zero difference being in Vanderhoof compared to Prince George without having to worry about being giving the okay by air traffic control out of the Prince George Airport. Those are my goals.
Thank you, David. Over to Tom.
Excellent, Dave. Thank you very much. I thought I was going to be the only one to mention the airport when it came to this, but thank you very much. There are a lot of economic opportunities in diversify our town. The agriculture is one of them, of course. And I, like Dave, would like to focus in on the airport right now. It is insufficient for what we need and what we have in our town. We've got a huge, passionate collection of aviators in this town. We've got 2 flight schools going on in our town. We've got simulators. We need to strengthen this airport. And I didn't know about the tanker thing, but I think that's a brilliant idea to strengthen the job opportunities that could be available out there. And I believe that if we hired a competent airport manager to be on site to look at that place and look after that place, it would be tremendous, but that would be right after we get the hangar. Currently, we have an outhouse out there. That's about it. So we need a competent manager. We need to fix that airport. I know that the district's been putting information or been putting money into it and working with it slowly, but a little too slowly. I think by this time we should have had our terminal. Our terminal is not just an outhouse. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Kurt?
In the years that we've been here, back in early 1960s, you couldn't give a log away. My dad had timber. He could not give a log away. He couldn't hire anybody to even take it. They used to take trees that were 16 inches, smash them down in a pile and push them into a pile and burn them so that they could make fields for agriculture. And then we've seen that development grow to where we have been a thriving community based on the logging industry. When the mountain pine beetle came, we've seen that industry boom, and now it is really starting to suffer, and it's starting to slow down, and we can see that. My big concern has been our community, and all the stores and the small businesses within our community have been based and supported off of primarily a logging-based industry. We talked a little bit here about the agriculture industry. I think agriculture is a very big and important industry that I'm involved with. But in the long, big-term effect of Vanderhoof, how much does it affect each individual person that has their own store? How many people are actually involved in the agricultural industry? And it needs to grow and develop, because that is one of the big backbones behind our community. But we also need to look at the mining industries that support us around and have abilities to support those that can work there. There's been talk of gas and oil and things, and those developments coming. That's kind of out of our hands to control that and to take that. But if that comes, we need to be prepared for it so that we can take advantage of that. Another thing that needs to be is technology. There's things in technology and tourism were some of the things I need to, because those are things that bring people here and help people spend money to keep people here and keep our shops, our stores, our small businesses open. And those are things that I find important. There's huge steps, and there's more that can be developed and more that can be brought forward to each one of us. And we need to hear your voice also so that we can address those issues.
Thank you, Kurt. Bill Tygrove.
Those are all excellent points. I really enjoyed yours there. I think the farming is another big one, kind of like we're doing with the housing. The other one that I really like is the farmers market that we have. I think we need to incentivize business to move to Vanderhoof by our taxes. I think we need to lower taxes, or at least keep them at a decent rate, and incentivize people to come invest in our community. There's a huge growth potential farming. I still think forestry still has a lot of value added things we can do. You know, the shavings thing, I think there's a lot of fiber that isn't necessarily good lumber that can be turned into that for the cattle industry. I think it's hugely underutilized. There's burn piles and that I don't think, personally, I'm not a big fan of. I think we need to utilize our resources better. There's short-term and long-term. One of the long-terms I think is mining is very underlooked and undervalued in our community. Short-term, how about the new pipeline? There's a second pipeline coming through. How about capitalizing on the camps? How about the food services? How about housing? How about motels? How about tourism? Let's incentivize other companies to invest in our community.
Well, I think that's a complex issue, and I think if you just turn it over to these five here, they'll have us in good hands there. Those are some excellent points. So I'd support all of what you fellas just said. That was great. Because I got to tell you, I mean, I could make something up here, but I'm not smart enough for this. It's obviously going to be a learning curve, and it's going to be an exploration process. But one thing I know we don't need more of in this world is more studies and more studies. We need some action. We need to get some stuff done. Spencer mentioned red tape. And you know, all of these things, Cindy, I love your idea there of, you know, the dairy and maybe even processing dairy to a further degree. In all of these things, we as a people, us here, you there, we have somehow allowed government to stymie pretty much everything with bureaucracy and red tape. That's a tough battle, and I'm not sure how to combat it, but at some point, men need to stand up and say, no to the bureaucracy. I don't know how to do that. I'm not sure how to do that, but to allow it to stymie everything is going to keep us pretty stagnant. So we got some awesome ideas, awesome vision. We have to force it into action.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you for the batteries. So Eric, did you want me to repeat the question?
He's good this time. I think if we're going to develop economic diversity and keep it, we need to develop local training programs for the industries that we want to have here. So I think a big player would be the CNCs and the employers developing training programs. Like we're short of truck drivers here, but we don't, we need more truck drivers. So we need to increase the truck driver training. If we're going to be on the pipeline, whatever those jobs are, we need to get people trained up. The mine, we should be ahead of the game training them. So the people here that are already here can get those jobs and stay. They're not commuting camp to Prince George or wherever. And hopefully we'll keep our youth. We've had people leave where I work to go to school to upgrade in Prince George, and they can't even come back to work for the summer because housing. They're scared they won't get housing for the next year's school. So I think if we can develop more local training, our diversity will increase.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Over to Ken.
Yeah, excellent. I appreciate Eric touching on CNC, so I'm not going to do that. As an educator, I really wanted to point that out, that CNC can really do a lot in our community going forward to meet those needs that you just talked about. I think anything we've learned over the last 2 years is also that we need to be more self-sustainable as a community to get through some of the difficult times we had with the supply chain and many other things in terms of food security. It's already been mentioned about agriculture. I really hope we could do more processing locally to ensure that we have that ability in the north to meet our own needs, and also to cut down all the shipping costs that so many of our producers have to face. Also, vets, huge thing. Again, it goes back to the education. I think many of you in here are quite aware of the vet shortage throughout our nation, and it's really hurting the producers in our area here. So working together with whoever is really working on that, with the RD, with our producers, etc. Tourism, I believe that's the sleeping giant for our community right now. We have a hub to work out of. We have opportunities with SICAs. We have opportunities with many other people who are looking for ecotourism to kick off in Vanderhoof and the region. So we're ready there. We need to get ready there. And the last piece, just want to touch on Artemis as well, thinking about us as Vanderhoof as a hub for them in terms of warehousing and being the place where their people are going to live and store their goods and services, and looking for services from the community as well. So there's a lot that we can do to diversify here, and it's working with the old and transferring a little bit to the new. So there's gonna be a lot of progress I feel is coming.
You, Ken. Ernest.
Thanks, Ken. I believe we do probably need to diversify our economy for sure. I think the logging will become a smaller percentage of our business here in the next few years. And hopefully the agriculture is going really strong. I believe it is too, from what I hear about it. Few people have mentioned tourism. I think that's a really strong point. Just like you said, Ken, I think that can really go a long ways if we promote that. It's exciting now with the gold mine, with Artemis coming in, and that could be a long-term 30-year project, which can really benefit all of us for sure. But I think sometime when we have people coming in asking or approaching from a council point of view anyway, people approaching council with these intentions of coming investing money in our community, we sometimes seem like we ask the wrong thing. And that was said even earlier before by someone, I don't think on the stage now, but even earlier in the evening on the mayoral part, that we're always kind of wondering what they can do for us. What can this mine do, or what can these things do for us? But really, it needs to be, what can we do for them? Like, well, what can we do for those guys that could make their coming in here easier? And thank you. And I think if you approach it that way, they're going to see that and sense that immediately, that we have a good positive attitude to try and promote them. If they come in here, if we can get them to come here, that'll take off on its own. Because to me, I mean, I'm in the small business world, but to me, if business is thriving or flourishing, that kind of takes care of a lot of different issues. You know, small business makes this town go around. So I think if we promote that and ask what we can do for them, that'll really help all those problems. Thanks.
Okay. It's always tough to go last, but I'm going to dive into this. As you've heard, for 11 years, we've been asking government to slow the harvest down. We knew what was coming in forestry. I tell others that I feel we're in a race to log the last stick, and we are. But as council, we've been trying to slow that down. We saw what was coming. But in the 11 years that I've been on, since Ken and I lost a couple of years ago, but anyway, we everything that we do is about diversifying the economy. Whether you think that's true or not, whether it's a pool or a skateboard park or working with Blackwater, and when I say working with them, we're every day working with them, trying to figure out how to get them here, use our airport, those type of things. I used airport too, Tom. So, but I do want to dive down into agriculture. What the other members of council have not said. We met with Minister Popham. I've had 2 meetings with her about agriculture. We've got 140,000 hectares of agricultural land in the valley. Now, to put that in perspective, that's more than all of the agricultural land on Vancouver Island, and it's equal to all of the land in the Lower Mainland. So she's committed to come up here to us. She's committed to come to a roundtable meeting to discuss how we're going to get back to having agriculture production facilities back in our town instead of the Palm Dairies and Saputos and Prince George. We're going to try and get that done. So we've been working on that. Mining's pretty big. Nothing has been said about manufacturing. We probably manufacture all of the sawmills for the southern states. So a shout out to those companies. I think we can expand that. So lots of things, and immigration is going to play a key role in all of those aspects coming to our community. So if we can work on that, that would be great.
Thank you very much, Brian. Well, at the end of this question, as we've just come to, I think this is a perfect time to take our 7-minute break. So it's 8:22. I would like to see you all back here at 8:29. Okay, if I could get everybody to take your seats, please. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being so close to 7 minutes there. That was excellent. So we have basically, given the amount of folks we have up here, we have 2 questions left that we're going to ask. And then we will close up with final statements from each candidate. But what I'm going to do is, without further ado, to start the next question, I'm going to pull a name. And the name we have is Ken Young. So Ken, this question is for you as soon as you get the microphone. Libraries play a key role in many communities for people to gather and access programs, promote reading and learning. What are your views on increasing, supporting the library services here in Vanderhoof?
I do agree that in our smaller communities, especially here in the north, the library is truly a hub. And I know in the last few years, our library staff has done an amazing job expanding many of our services. And they're really reaching out to many who don't have access to certain services, such as the internet and other opportunities. They also bring in some different courses and other education components to many people who are looking to find new ways to be employed and to become acclimatized into our community. So they've done a lot of work that I'd say 10 years ago, our library was not doing. So I think moving forward, the library needs to be recognized as something that is evolving, that's growing. I still remember years ago when the library was, I'm not sure how many you would remember, it was in our arena. And that wasn't the best place for a library. And today it's in a nice space. I know that the library board would love to have a much bigger, nicer space. And I think one day it's going to grow into that. It's getting closer and closer. Probably they would argue now. So I think that will depend on some funding, but it's definitely a key cog in our community. And I know that it's not one of those things that people think, oh, it's a library with books. Who needs books anymore? That is not the case. There's a lot of books going in and out, and the technology is servicing so many needs for our locals. So it's definitely a gem here in our community, and I hope we can continue to help support and grow it.
Thank you, Ken. Ernest.
Thanks. Yeah, it's I like the library too. I think a library is very important, and like you say, it's much more than just books. There's certainly lots of books there, and you can research anything you want if you want it on paper. I think the internet access there has been great for a lot of people that maybe don't have that or haven't had in the past. And I know they do a lot more than just books and internet. They put on lots of programs. I know they do lots of young people programs in the summer, school age children, young people programs. And I've even used the library myself, not that, I mean, even me, I don't mean that at all, other than there's books in there. I need books. No, what I mean is even in my own personal business, I've very often, for a number of years already, have rented the library's meeting room in the back for a classroom for my school. Like, it's a big part of my job, even my business is using the library. So I'm absolutely a major library proponent.
Thank you, Ernest.
Thanks, Ernest. A couple of things have been said already, especially, moving from where we were in the arena to now where we're in the old highways building, now the library. I think the internet is key for the library. I think my partners and friends at Avison Management probably would like it a little less, so it's not, their parking lot's not full all the time with people accessing it after hours, which is fantastic because we don't understand when people need the internet. But people can pull up to that after it's closed and still use it. On council, we have people that are involved in different aspects that they have passion for. So I'm not speaking to the library anymore other than I'm a fan. But this person beside me is the person on our team that has the passion for the library, and we hear about it all of them every meeting. And so I'm going to pass it on to Cindy.
It is, thank you, Brian. It is, the library is part of our social infrastructure, and we need to continue to support it. The library is a place of connection in our community. It is one of the only places where public places where people can go and not be treated as a consumer. Our library is open to all people. It's a place where people who don't have a place to go can come. We have an amazing library board, and we have amazing library staff who are very, very passionate. Yeah, they are awesome. They offer all kinds of programming for the community, for the children. It's all free. During COVID, I was so proud of our library staff. They ensured that they delivered books to people who couldn't come and get them. They had a really cool system where they were safe, but to make sure that people could come and get their books. They understand the value and the importance of the library, and I think our community needs to continue to support that. I saw a really neat program that I had brought up to our library, our chief librarian, where mothers in my son's community, his partner, took their little girl and met a bunch of other gals there. There was toys to play with, and they just had a place to visit where it wasn't putting pressure on anybody. It was safe, it was comfortable. The children did their things, and that's the new library. So anyway, I'm just gonna be quiet, but I do absolutely believe we need to continue to support it 100%.
How many things can you say about a library? But I think it's great that we have a library, and obviously as a council, we need to support it. And it is used a lot by people who don't have access to internet at home, and that's a great thing. And it also has books. So that's a good thing. But I think one of the areas that could be expanded would be, they have a meeting room in the back of the library that is an excellent facility, and I don't think it's utilized enough. And perhaps they could even expand that, because there's not a lot of places in town where groups can meet and have meetings. So that would be one area that I would suggest that we look at expanding.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty hard pressed to find someone who's against libraries here. Obviously, I spent a lot of time in the library when I was a kid. I bring my kids there all the time. They have, like everyone's mentioned, they have more than just books. They have DVDs. There's an app now you can sign up with your library card where you can check out ebooks basically for a certain time. It doesn't even have to be in town. They started bringing in board games and other things like that. And I know they have tons of great programs for kids and teenagers, not just young kids, but of all ages, even for adults. Yeah, I mean, who's going to say no to this?
So I think, like everyone else has said, it's a no-brainer. Library is a part of our community. It's who we are. We can learn history from all walks of life, no matter if it's paper or online. I think just the connectivity issue that we have in this community, to have a place where people can go to access it and use it, is amazing. I agree with some of the previous comments about the multi-purpose room. For some of you that don't know, I used to work for the Chamber of Commerce, and I tried to use that meeting room as much as I could because I thought it was central. It had great facilities, and it was clean, and everybody enjoyed being there. So libraries are, a part of who we are, and we can't let them go to the wayside. We need to invest in them and continue to move forward with them, and just diversify what a library is too. It's an ever-changing world, and we just have to change with it.
Yeah, no, the library is a huge piece in our community, and I too remember when it was in the arena. I actually think I remember back a long time ago. It was actually in Wallace's Custom Studios office in the old fire hall at one time, up and around that area. So it's made a few rounds in town, and it's finally located on the old Ministry of Highways facility there. And I think when they first went in there, it was probably a bit tight. Certainly the times that I've gone in there, there's, you get the feel like there's not a lot of room in there to do any expansion of any kind. like everybody else has talked about, the programs, the e-books and all that, outstanding. And one of the things that really made me think about how important a library is during tree planting season, you always see tree planters hanging out in the front of the library. And I know they're just using the internet, but they're also in some cases taking a look at some periodicals that they'd like to get a read on. So it's a super important piece. I think one of the things we need to do as a council is look at what it would take to maybe do a bit of an expansion for it.
So I can't answer the question directly, what would I do to help the library? And that I, of course, agree that the library is an intrinsic part of our town and we must keep it and we must work with it. So I can't answer that question exactly. When I get on council, if I am lucky enough to get on council, part of it is going to be learning. I'll have to learn what kind of relationship right now the District of Vanderhoof has with the library. What do they do for the library? What don't they do for the library that they could? These are things I don't know, so I can't answer that question directly. I went to the library once because I wanted to learn something. And when I was there, it was for a book because it was a library. And when I grew up, that's what you got at libraries was books. The librarian there showed me how many online courses and things I could learn through the library. I was amazed. And so, yeah, we need to work with the library. I just don't know what we're doing with them right now. And I would like to find that out before I could make any promises about what we can do with them in the future.
As far as the library goes, I think that there's a great thing. Education is the key to success, and the success comes from reading and learning and being educated. I've only used library a couple of times myself. Most of the books I've ever read are repair manuals, service manuals, transmission manuals. I've had to get on the internet twice that I didn't have enough access in my own computer, so I went down there because theirs was way better. My children are fanatical, and my wife is fanatical about the library. They go there all the time, and for lots of different books that are learning, educational, fun. As far as what the libraries need, I don't know because I have not gone down there. I know it's not a place people just go to hang out, to have fun and hang out with their friends. But it is a place to go and learn, and we need to continue that in our community, and we need to continue to grow and continue to have further education facilities and possibilities. It's through education, through learning, through reading, whatever it is, that our minds are expanded and are able to grow, to come up with some new ideas and new thoughts, and to help develop our future, which is our children in our community.
I think libraries are critical to our society. I absolutely love that we have expanded over the years. But one of the 5-6 years ago, I went in and they were doing a small art show. So what I personally would love is to combine an art building with the library and then have courses and things for children to encourage creativity and to display it for all to see. Let's expand on it. Let's grow.
Well, obviously, I'm not, privy to the needs of the library. But like Spencer says, it's a no-brainer. Every town needs a library. So I would be more than willing, more than happy to hear from the staff, because who knows better than them, and to obviously work with them. That's an absolute necessity and a no-brainer.
A no to the library, I guess. Somebody's got to do it. I mean, of course, we'd want to increase the services that the library could provide. I find this to be a strange question. So, yeah, there are some good ideas. I think, I know that the audio books were good. The loggers like listening to them, and if we can get them guys smarter, then let's do it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And just so everyone's clear, including the panel here, I didn't pick the questions. The questions were submitted by the public, and we just put them in order. That's all we did. So with that, there's going to be one more question I think that we have time for. And so this question is going to start with Spencer. Wait till he has the mic in his hand. Drum roll, please. Spencer, how would you propose to protect the healthcare workers and public health officials and local politicians who have faced intimidation in the last year?
Well, that's a tough question. I can speak for all of us incumbents and the ones who have worked in the healthcare system for the last 2 years. It's been a difficult time. No one's perfect. We all know that. Everyone has their opinions, and they're allowed to voice their opinions. Now, the problem is we haven't all agreed in the last 2 years, and it's got to a point of very hurtful comments, actions, and to protect that, you just have to stand up to what you believe is right. And I believe that our healthcare workers, went to school for many years for a reason. They know better than us. I go to them for anything. Well, not anything, but a lot of things. And I take their advice. I had my daughter up at the clinic today, and I listened to what the doctor said to me because she knows best. I don't know what the heck she's talking about, but she knows. So yeah, healthcare professionals need to be treated with respect. They're an integral part of our community. If we don't treat them with respect, we're going to lose them. And without healthcare in our community, we don't have a community. So we just got to stand up and protect them. And when it comes to politicians, maybe we're a little more vulnerable. But we just got to, just continue to talk what we believe is right and go from there. But thank you.
Thank you, Spencer.
Yeah, this is a tough one because, really the protection of the healthcare workers kind of falls onto the employer at the hospital, the clinic, the different pharmacies and such. And then in most cases, the employer is, for all those folks that are working in those fields have done a great job of putting together action plans of what their staff are to follow. And really, the staff are now able to tell anybody that's acting inappropriate or saying derogatory comments that we don't have to treat you if you're going to act in that manner. Totally support that. These workers over the last 2 years under the COVID pandemic have undergone more stress and heartache than anybody else in the community, and we really need to have their back. I could see, in some cases, they could be posting like codes of conduct for any of the clients that would come in there. But really, this is a really tricky one, and but it falls onto the employers these health workers report to.
I have to agree with both these fellows that it's a difficult question, because if you jump up and do what perhaps I'd like to do, which is start charging people who are that disrespectful to, whether it's our health workers, our law enforcement people, or our politicians, for example, it doesn't matter. When you get that out of control, it's time for the law to step in. But then you sound like a militant, so you're not allowed to say it that way either. I found it completely disgusting what was going on with some of our healthcare workers and some of the protests that were going on, which went far beyond the protest mode. You are allowed your voice, you're allowed to protest, but man, oh man, let the healthcare people do their jobs, because they're the ones who keep us thriving and living.
I would agree with what's been said so far completely. And I would like to give a great big thank you to our healthcare facilities here, because they are a critical part to our community, especially as we are aging. I feel it's sad that they would even feel like they're threatened in any way. They should never be threatened, no matter, good decisions, bad decisions. They still have to make calls too, and they're educated. We're not. And I really appreciate what they do. We've used them many, many times with a growing family. And I am so thankful they're there, because I personally myself would not be here if it had not been for emergency care several times. And they've done a great job. I'm still paying for some of it. That's my own fault, not theirs. So I'm thankful for what they have done. I think there's lots to be do. They need to feel like they're safe and comfortable part. As far as the political side of things, there's a lot of different ideas, different thoughts, different views, different things, backgrounds that we are each coming from, and we need to respect those no matter what they are. And we need to work with each other. We need to work with all people to be able to make a community and our community a thriving and a good community that everybody feels safe and comfortable and wants to be here.
I'm actually with Kurt on that. I'm surprised that they would even get threatened. This is shocking to me. Any of the first responders. But the problem transcends just us up here sitting. It goes back to employers. And realistically, it goes back to each one of you. We are all responsible. If you see others acting in an irresponsible way, we are responsible to say, hey, what are you doing? We're here to stand up. We're here to be counted. Defend your fellow man. Defend your fellow workers. That's what we're here for, all of them. Doesn't matter where they're from, what they identify as, it doesn't matter. We're here to work together as a community. Let's grow on that.
Well, we saved the toughest till the last, did we? I can't say that I appreciate the question, and I'll clarify that. It's a very divisive question. I don't think it's one to be discussed in a productive, healthful way in a setting like this. That being said, obviously, we love our healthcare workers. Obviously, we do. I have no hate on for anybody. My wife and my firstborn wouldn't be here if it weren't for healthcare workers. So I appreciate them a lot. When government mixes politics, policies, forced issues into the equation, it gets messy. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I don't have the answers, but neither will I just be politically correct on it. There's a big discussion, and it's not one to be solved right here. It just can't be.
Could I get the question again? I like your voice. Well, thank you. I'll be here tomorrow night too. So, yeah. How would you propose to protect the healthcare workers, public health officials, and local politicians who have faced intimidation in the last year? Okay, so last year, similar situations could come up, I guess, in the future. So we can't go arresting everybody for every little transaction, but maybe we got to start, looking ahead that this is something like this is likely to happen again. Like a pandemic, and we need a better communication plan with our local population on what our local healthcare workers, our local health authority, and our local politicians have authority over. Communicate that clearly to the people of this community. If the council doesn't have authority over something, why are you talking to them or potentially intimidating them or making them feel intimidated about issues that are out of their control? And I don't know what the scenario was. And the healthcare workers. I mean, they just want to get up, go to work, help people, and go home, I suspect. Other than that, putting up the signs didn't work. So you gotta get ahead of the game, and it's coming, and this is what we're gonna do. And this is who you talk to if you got a problem. It's above me, or it is me. And hoping that there'll be open and civil communication back and forth. My suggestion, I guess.
I think many politicians expect criticism. They expect nasty things to be said once in a while. I think most of the people that have served on village or town council, district of Vanderhoof council, I say village because I grew up here. It used to be the village of Vanderhoof, but we've grown. in a lot of ways, and in some ways not so much. And we're working on those things. And I think we view ourselves as volunteers more than politicians, and that could be debated elsewhere. But when it comes to healthcare and those who work in that field, it's reprehensible, some of the things that were being said and directed in their direction. And I think if people just simply understand it, let's switch it to economics then. It's already been said, it's already been touched enough on why it was wrong. But the negative effect it has in the community, I try to touch on the fact that this is a major attraction and retention piece for our community, that we have solid healthcare, and then it gets undermined by the very residents that receive care by it. That's frustrating. We can do all we talk about putting houses in, getting people here, and we need people to fill jobs. If we scare away our healthcare, that's one of the things that we have here in Vanderhoof that many other northern communities do not have. So we need to really understand what we're doing when that happens. It's far more than just be nice to each other. It permeates throughout our whole entire community in so many different ways. So we need to understand that. And so once we understand that truly, I think us as a community, we can all work together and say, okay, not just look after this group, this group, this group. This piece, healthcare, affects every single one. You've already heard that as it came down. I think everybody's got a story where somebody's life was saved because of healthcare workers. So let's really think about that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Wow. I don't think this is a tough one at all. This is not a tough one. Like there's, like Ken just said too, we've all got stories about being saved by the healthcare system. And when it comes to medical issues, we've all been there. I'm sure everyone in this room's been there. You know someone that has. When it comes to medical stuff, who in your life do you trust more than your doctor? Like there is no one we go to other than that. And the doctors totally 100% have my respect for that. I think we need to respect them. And if the doctor is being threatened, and I know a few doctors personally for sure, and I've heard those stories too, and I told them too, well, whatever comes, I got your back. Like I'm behind you for sure. Not that that means anything more than I'm just telling you I got your back for sure. What caused seemed like lots of those divisions is extremes one way or the other on different issues, and you're totally fine to have that, but I think even the extremes, like we have to be a little more about everything in moderation. Like that's a pretty important thing to think about. We have to be moderate about stuff like that, and you have to think about both sides before we react for sure. Anything extreme, I think that about any opinion, anytime people are extreme about anything, it feels like if you can't compromise your opinion, you'll never have a voice. Like absolutely, you can be extreme one way or the other, but if you can't compromise, you're not going to go any farther than that. That's my thought. Thanks.
It's been said that it's difficult. I take the tack that it's not. A threat is a threat, and it should be dealt that way. And I don't care who it's against, but in this case, it was healthcare workers treated as a threat. What I saw was despicable. And to the point where we talked on council, we thought we knew the town. That was one piece of town, this town that we're trying to work for, that we saw that we've never seen before. So to that point, I've been working when Minister Osborne, Josie Osborne, was with Minister of Municipal Affairs. I worked with her and created a code of conduct. Code of conduct's now going to become part of all councils and mayors and regional districts to have a look at it. We hope to expand that out so that we're treated with respect as well. I will also tell you that I presented at UBCM 2 weeks ago on a local leadership mental health, because yeah, it might be fun and games to crap on council, but it's not. We're human like everybody else. So when you get in front of a camera and say things that you do, it affects everybody, and it affects our town. I agree with Councillor Young. It affected our town in such a negative way. So it is easy. Treat the threat as a threat. Thank you.
This is a difficult question because the last year and 2 years, emotions have been very high. People have been tired and people have been fearful. And I think communication is one way that perhaps we need to reflect upon how communication was handled. And I would suggest right from the top level of government, because the folks at the people are afraid and they're looking for someone to take their fear out upon, and the very people that are working very hard to make them safe were the ones that received the brunt of that. So I think communication, we need to look at how things were communicated. And I believe communicating better will protect all of us. I also think that it's very, as Councillor or Brian has said, sorry, we're not in a council meeting, but as Brian has said, we need to be very clear about the boundary lines and what we will and will not tolerate, and what certain behaviors will be treated as. And because this was not the Vanderhoof that I came to love.
This truly is a difficult question, and we've had some reasonably good answers. But this is what happens when the government politicizes medicine. The blame should fall on the provincial and federal governments for politicizing medicine. And there are many components to this issue. People get very frustrated when they are forced, like nurses and doctors and technical people and radiologists in the hospital are told, if you don't take an untested jab, you're going to lose your job. That's bullying. So the other component is if you have a loved one in the hospital and you're not jabbed, you can't go in and see them, or at least you couldn't. So what are you supposed to do? And that's a question that I always have. What are we supposed to do? Because I've talked to the MPs, the MLAs, to the local council, in fact, and they all tell me the same thing. It's somebody else's responsibility. Well, somebody has to take responsibility, and so people get really frustrated and angry. And I'm not advocating violence or threats. I certainly am not. I'm not that kind of person. But I understand what's going on. And when you politicize medicine, these are the kind of things that are going to happen. Okay, so the government has no right to tell you what to do with your body, and no one has the legal right to ask you for your medical information other than your doctor. That's a fact. So that's how I would answer that question. And we need to hire back those heroes who have lost their jobs because they chose not to take some kind of an untested, unproven medical procedure into their bodies. And there are many, many doctors who agree with that. In fact, there were hundreds who signed the Barrington Declaration. There are the Frontline Doctors of America, and there's a long list of doctors.
Okay, thank you, Henry.
This question honestly makes me a bit angry that it had to be asked. We started 2 or 3 years ago, going on at 7 o'clock, banging pots and pans for our nurses and healthcare workers out there, doing their job, doing what they went to school for, what they've been trained to do, is helping people. If your work went up to you and said, hey, this is a company policy, you're not following it, you got to follow it, and you said no, you'd be out the door. These people had, it's ridiculous. You have, people are allowed to have your different opinions. Threats are more than a different opinion. Why don't we trust the professionals to do what they want, to do what they decide by trial and error? This, again, going off of other people's answers here, I totally believe that threats are threats and they need to be treated like threats. There's no place in this community or in Canada for any of this disrespect. That's, it's an obvious question there, so I'm going to end it here. Thank you.
Okay, so not all the questions are softball questions, that's for sure. What we're going to do now is move on to closing statements. We're going to move on to closing statements now, and beginning with Spencer and working our way this way.
Well, everybody, thanks for coming tonight. And to all the candidates, thank you. It's great to see how much interest we have in our community, how the passion, the love for our community. We do all have very differing opinions, and that's okay. We're meant to disagree. If we didn't, it'd be a pretty boring world. On October 15th, I seek re-election for council. I hope that you'll consider me. I have lots to offer. I have 2 young kids. I bought a home. I've laid roots in this community. I'm 3rd generation. I don't plan on going anywhere. And I want to see this community continue to grow and prosper, as I know it can and I know it will. So on October 15th, I seek your vote for election for council. Thank you.
And again, thanks, Robin and Chamber for hosting tonight's event. I've lived in Vanderhoof for 46 years. My family's grown up here. We've had grandchildren here, not going anywhere. Actually, in my career, I actually left Vanderhoof for a few years, only to come back because there was a calling. And the calling was, you know, if you've drank from the Nechako, you always come back. So I believe my experience in local government, not municipal government, but with provincial government, gives me some insight on direction that we need to go in the forest industry. I've got very close relationships with the senior executive of the ministry. I think I can be a strong voice for our community to make things happen for us here. And you know, I really am hoping that you will support me on October 15th. Thank you.
I as well want to thank the chamber, and I want to thank Robin. I've been in that position. I know how difficult it can be to wrangle people on stage, and I don't think I've ever seen 13 either. So thank you, Robin. And thank you all for coming out tonight too and taking part in this important process. This year probably more important than a lot of other times. The heavy lifting is now up to you. You've got to decide who you feel is going to guide us forward. You must vote. That's intrinsic. Get your friends, get everybody. You must get out and vote for councillor, mayor, school trustee, regional district representative. That is happening tomorrow night, the school district and the regional district. Take those in. So tonight I'm asking you to take that responsibility very seriously and think about it very carefully. First of all, think about all the positives we've had up here, things that can help our town, agriculture and tourism, aviation and more. But there are factors in this election that are looking to ask us to hurry on backwards, do the reverse of the progress we've made. They want us to bury our head in the sand. And you know what happens when your head's in the sand? You can't only see what's coming at you. You're going to leave yourself wide open to disaster. I'm open to discussing any or all of the things that we've talked about, collaborating on solutions, looking for ways to continue to move our community forward, all without terrorizing our healthcare professionals, our local politicians, or even our school children, scaring them so much that they had to cower in change rooms when all they wanted to do was swim. So please, don't allow that faction, the dark and the oppressive, to ruin what is and can be a very sparkling and great community. I want to be one of the reasonable, sane choices that will shed light on the problems, come up with practical, modern solutions to them, and with your support, I can begin doing that on the 15th of October. Again, thank you all so much for being here and being engaged. Thank you.
I'd like to thank each one of you for attending here and those that are at home on the internet, wherever they are. You are the backbone of our community, and our community extends far beyond the borders of our district boundaries too. Everything we do as a council, as a community, affects everybody within our community, within the regional areas of our community. They're all affected, and we need to be, as a council, whoever you choose, to guide and direct. They're your voice in council for decision making, and we want to hear your voice and your opinions and your feelings on what needs to happen also. And we need to be able to be listening to those, hear them, understand, and put those things to work. We have a great community here. We need to keep it a great community and do what we can to make everybody feel comfortable within our community.
When I went to post-secondary education and for a while in Ohio, I had the privilege of going to a state fair. In going there, there's an older gentleman, and he had quite an array of ribbons. And he was growing corn and had won the golden corn for 10 years in a row. So I asked him, I said, how do you win? He said, well, it's actually very simple. In order for me to have the best crop, I go to my neighbor and I give him all the seeds. Then I go to the neighbor on the other side and give him all the seeds. My whole crop is surrounded by the same corn that I grow. And in helping my neighbors, my crop grows better. Let's all help each other in this community. Let's reach out. It doesn't really matter who you vote for. Let's all work together as a community.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. It's been interesting. First time for me to do this. So yeah, it's been an experience. I'll keep it short. You know, we heard from Cindy, she said communication is the key. Like, for sure. I was asked on a radio interview what I thought the two most important factors facing Vanderhoof were. I said, well, it doesn't really matter what I think they are. That's not my job as a public servant to force my agenda onto anybody. It's to find out what the community needs, what it really needs, and assess those things as a group, and that's what we'll work towards. So, like Bill said, this is about you. You have a responsibility now to vote. You have a responsibility to come out and communicate. I will have to say that the communication might be a new thing. I will hear you. I will listen, and I will communicate.
Well, thanks for coming out and listening to me. I hope I portrayed myself to you as my true personality and my views as best I could. I'd like to thank all the volunteers. That must have been a horrible job for coming out and helping do this, and for everybody staying awake through the whole thing, right? No, he did not. If you elect me, I hope to be elected. I read the mission statement on the community plan, and one part of it I really liked, and I want to be part of this team. I just took one part of it, to play a role in unifying the community towards a common vision. And that's why I'm running. I want to be part of moving this district, village forward. And I hope that you give me that opportunity. And thank you for coming out.
Well, we're coming to the end of a very eclectic, interesting few hours we spent together. Always great to have people gather and talk about the future of our community and the dreams that we have for it. I know that I believe in Vanderhoof, just like everyone here. We all have our different visions and ideas and goals for our community. And some have already touched on this, but I think it's not our personal visions that are really going to count here. It's that we need to come up with a strong, well-developed vision as a new council, or whoever that council may be, that can follow a strategic plan that's been put together and working with staff to meeting the needs and the desires of our community. And I think that's the thing we need to remember, that the council move forward as a team and be able to not only decide together, but follow through together and make sure those things happen. Some of this will take some time, and all the things that have been accomplished in the past decade did take some time. Let's finish those jobs that are before us, those things we talked about tonight that are bothering all of us, and we need to make some progress on. One of my favorite quotes, pretty simple one, It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So we can't at this point really try to afford to go alone in any aspect. We must look for partnerships around us, whether it be in industry, our friends in CICAs, other communities, or different levels of government. Now is the time to be creative. I know the challenges before us, and I believe I have the capacity and energy to be part of a new innovative team that will find solutions to help us ensure that Vanderhoof be the best Vanderhoof it can be for all of us, where everyone can be safe and have dignity. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. So why vote for me? I think one of the biggest reasons I think I can contribute to this team Ken was just talking about here is I feel like it's a good time in my life to try and pay back to our community for all the good it's done for me and my family. Vanderhoof's been a great place. I've been here my whole life, and I think it's a good time for me to pay back. We have no idea kind of what could happen in the next 4 years, and I think it takes a good, strong council to kind of face whatever comes. I'm sure, you know, there's no one in this room that could have anticipated 4 years ago what the last 4 years was going to do. It's been very divisive, and there's some healing that needs to take place. And I think I want to be part of the team that does that for sure. I have absolutely no personal agenda. Like, I'm not doing this anything for me or anything. I want to be part of a group that is strong in council, that brings good things forward for sure. I think maybe some of my experience and business sense, if I can just kind of help steer the ship a little bit, you know what I mean? That's kind of what it's like. We're not about to go in there and make a bunch of big hasty changes. It doesn't work like that, for sure. I'm a huge proponent of local big and small business, and my goal will always be to try and promote a great business environment that encourages that small business and allows it to flourish. Like I said before, if business is doing good, the rest of the town is doing good. I'm very proud to be from Vanderhoof, and I will always promote it no matter where I go and what I do. I'm proud to say I'm from Vanderhoof. I appreciate all of you guys here tonight, and I hope I can count on your support on October 15th.
Thanks, Ernest. Thanks, Robin and the chamber and all the volunteers. Appreciate that. And thanks everybody here and at home watching. Our community is constantly being inundated with downloaded service requests, some subtle and others more direct, to adapt to changes in our life, climate, economy, technology, and our environment. Vanderhoof is a community that has and always will rise to the challenge of these demands. While planning is only one effort that council uses to help guide our community through some of these hurdles, we depend on the residents and volunteers of the community to keep us in touch. Good communication is always key to the success of a community, and our council is diligent in its communication efforts. But we should never assume that every resident of Vanderhoof is up to date with what council is trying to accomplish. Conversely, council should never assume that we know everything that's going on in our community. We depend on each other. We are a team. As I mentioned in my opening speech, public service is at best a vocation, not a hobby. It's a calling, and those that are elected have the good fortune to act responsibly and solve some of the challenges we face. For those that know me, I have that calling. I'm energized to run for council and be part of the team and look forward to facing new challenges. I have a proven ability to work collaboratively, to listen and trust, and to help create partnerships with all levels of government. Together, we will make Vanderhoof a better place to live. Family is the key component to why I run for council. On October 5th, which is advance voting, and October 15th, I ask for your support to represent you and your family and our community of Vanderhoof. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I would just also like to thank the Chamber for sponsoring this event. And I would like to thank all of the folks sitting up here with me. Well done. Great for you to step forward. And Ernest, I don't think any of us are up here because of some kind of self-gain. We really do have a heart to serve this community, so thank you. Oh, we know that the lack of accessible, affordable housing is impeding industry, contributing to the shortage of human resources in healthcare, education, and all levels of services provided in the community. Creating solutions will require all of us to work together. We know that we need to diversify our economy, build better roads, upgrade our infrastructure, and those things are all important. But this community begins and ends with the people. We can make a choice to continue to highlight our differences and point fingers, or we can be the community that I have learned to call home. We live in a beautiful valley that is rich in resources. My vision for Vanderhoof is a community working together to protect our resources and working together to ensure equal opportunity for all people. Let's listen to each other and make decisions that are influenced by who we are and not by who others say we should be. Our words and our actions matter. Healthy people in the community want to see their families and their neighbors thrive. We need to build that through volunteering, sharing, and looking after each other. When my neighbor hurts, I hurt. I will continue to serve this community, whether or not I'm elected. 'Cause it-
I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank Robin and my fellow candidates. I'm glad we can sit down or stand up and be civil to each other and share our differing opinions. One of the issues that's been going on for a number of years, federally, provincially, and municipally, is a low voter turnout. That's a huge problem. Okay, so I'm asking you, and I'm asking all the people at home, tell your friends to get out and vote. It's called Go TV. Get out the vote. And that's really critical because in the past, we've had people get in by acclamation. We've had people get in with 300 or 400 votes, and that really doesn't represent the community. This is a really, really important issue. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up as a starter. In my opening statement, I highlighted some of the things that need to be addressed. And I promise you, if elected, I will work hard to find out what is going on with the finances at the municipal office, to respond to all correspondence in a timely and respectful manner, to find solutions to the housing shortage in Vanderhoof, to make sure that we fulfill our obligations in the primary roles of municipal government, which I mentioned in my opening statement. Just as an aside, when it comes to the housing issue, there are approximately, I believe, more than 20 people, handicapped people in this community who are either living with their parents or living with someone who will not be able to take care of them for the rest of their life. And that's really a priority in the housing market. So just wanted to bring that out. And lastly, I mentioned the Rainbow Crosswalk earlier, and I'd love to talk to you about why I'm not in favor of it. I have valid reasons. And so come and talk to me. I'm easy to talk to. I'm running on these issues, and I look forward to serving this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
All right, I'll try and beat the bell because I think everyone's ready to get out of here. Yeah, what you've heard from everyone here is get out and vote. Just to put it in perspective, last election, 1/3 of eligible voters showed up to vote. Between the 6th and 7th candidates was 33 votes. Every vote counts. Even if you're not voting for me, I don't care. Just get out and make your voice heard. Secondly, housing is the huge issue, but we got to start thinking strategically about housing. Start building like maybe more apartments, condos, townhouses, less of a wider footprint and build taller, I think would be a great way of dealing with the space that we have. The other thing, not just housing, in order to get people to move here, we got to think of other things such as childcare, have more to offer. If people move here and they have nothing to do, they're going to move away. Other than that, what you see is kind of what you get. I don't hide behind anything. I'm proud with everything I've stood up for in the past couple of years, and I'm looking forward to continuing. And 1 minute left, so I'm going to cut it here. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you to all of you for the time that you've spent up here, literally and figuratively in the hot seat. It's about 30 degrees up on this stage here. So, so yeah, it was, the sweat isn't just from nervousness. So again, it's been said, but I will say it again, Saturday, October 15th is General Voting Day. Eligible voters may cast their ballot at the Friendship Center on Victoria between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Advance voting will be held on Wednesday, October 5th from 8 to 8 at the Municipal office. For more information, you can contact the municipality. On behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank our candidates. And to the Northern BC Real Estate Board, I'd like to thank you for sponsoring. To all of our volunteers, our timekeepers, and our audiovisual gurus over there, and especially to Michelle for putting up with me. Thank you. So remember, your vote matters. It's absolutely true. You can choose up to 6 councillors out of 13, and so it's very important that you get out and you vote. I won't say vote often, just get out and vote. Yeah. So be sure to join us tomorrow night at 5. We're going to have the Regional District Candidate Forum, followed at 7 by our School District Trustee Forum. So hope to see you all there tomorrow. I know I'll be there. So you remember, your vote matters, and have yourself a good evening. Good night.
A long drive. All right. Yeah, man. This is good. Oh, yeah, we'll talk about it.